Today we are going to talk about the big monster of burnout. This can be especially bad if you're a creative type and a lot of your personality is tied into making art, being creative, and then you get to a place where you feel like you really can't make anything. This is something that I've dealt with a lot. It used to be a much bigger problem when I worked in corporate America and I was a busy businesswoman and I hated it. I hated every second of it. But now that I'm a full-time writer and I spend most of my time on comedy and writing fiction, it doesn't happen as much, but I still had a really bad case of burnout at the beginning of this year. If you look at any of the MakeGood social media pages, you'll see I pretty much dropped out from like the end of December to like February, March. So with the help of a combination of therapy and internet research and trial and error, I found a process that works really well for me to get me out of burnout. I know this is going to help me in the future. So I wanted to share that with y'all so that you have kind of a template to start working out of burnout if you're feeling it yourself. Now, these are just the starting steps that will help you begin to break out of the cycle of burnout. It's a long process. It's a psychological problem, so it takes a long time to work through. But this is the place to start. Because I like to do things in numbered lists, I'm going to give you 5 easy steps of varying levels of easiness to start breaking out of burnout. But first, I kind of want to talk to you about what burnout is and how to tell the difference. Like, first you have to figure out, are you just really stressed? Are you dealing with a lot of stress? Or is it burnout? Because these two things have very different symptoms and very different cures. Pretty much the key difference between stress and burnout is that stress often spurs you to additional action. You feel frantic, you feel like you have to be places, you feel it's anxious and activity and so that's stress. But when you get into a place of burnout, it's actually a state of shutdown for your brain, your body, your mind, all of you. Well, stress is characterized by feelings that are very much like panic. Burnout is going to be more self-talk like, is this even worth it? Why am I doing this? Is it worth it to get out of bed in the morning? And struggling to just get up and do basic things. You're just totally burnt to a crisp. Your candle wick is done. You have no more candle. Burnout is a very apt phrase. So if you're feeling frantic and anxious, it might still be in the stages of stress. If you're feeling low, if you're feeling very cynical and down and you really don't want to take any action, you really can't bring yourself to work or it's super hard to get yourself to do anything, then that is burnout. Both stress and burnout are similar in that if you take away whatever is causing the stress and the burnout, you will feel better. But stress can also be relieved just by taking a break. Stress builds up over time. If you're still in the stages of just feeling, then taking a couple weeks off will totally help you and you can come back feeling better, revitalized, ready to go into things with a calmer mind. Burnout isn't like that. Whatever is causing your burnout, you can't just escape it temporarily and come back and feel better. You're just going to get burnt out again. It is a terrible cycle. So if we know that we're burnt out, we're finally in that place, what do we do? How do we escape the cycle? The first thing that you have to do to get out of the cycle of burnout is you have to break away from your usual life, your usual routine. You need to take time for self-exploration and to figure out what's really causing the burnout. It might not be what you think it is. So take as much time away from your usual life, your usual work as possible. Now, if you can take a year and travel the world or go live in Paris or whatever it is, if you can do that, if you're in a spot where you can do that, hell yeah, go do that. That's awesome. That's not feasible for most of us. So take as much time off as you can. If you can take a month off by yourself to get some introspection, awesome. If you can take a weekend away, do that. If you can take every Friday off from now on, sometimes companies will let you do flexible schedules like that. Do that. Figure out how much time you can feasibly spend on introspection and figuring out the cause of your burnout, and also getting some time to relax. Take as much time as possible to break out of your usual routine. If you're in a situation where you cannot take any time off of work, I understand this isn't the normal thing for a lot of people. It's very hard to take that time away. Then figure out something else in your schedule that you can drop completely so that you can use that time for self-exploration. Maybe you can't get any time off of work, but you can stop doing some outside of work activity. Or maybe instead of being the one who has to go pick up your kids after school, you ask your spouse to do it or a friend, and you take that extra time for yourself. Find as much time as possible, break from your normal routine, and we're going to use that time for self-exploration in the rest of the steps. Make sure that you lean on your support group for help during this. You want to break away from your usual responsibilities, so ask family members, ask friends, explain to them, be honest. Tell them you're at the end of your rope and you really need help because you don't feel like doing anything. You don't feel like living anymore. Be honest with people, and your support network will be happy to help. If they're not, then you need a new support network, but that's a different video. Now that we've done step 1 and we've taken some time, however much time off that we can from whatever we can, we're gonna do step 2. And this step is very simple. Just relax. Just do some brainless fun. Go for walks. Just take some time to relax. Don't stop at this step. If you've taken a month off, spend the first week relaxing. But we're going to go into the rest of the steps, and those are the important steps for burnout. But this step is really important too. You need to take some time at the beginning to just chill out, decompress. Remind yourself that there are other things than work or whatever it is that's been weighing on you. And just chill. But we can't stop there. That'll work for stress, for relieving stress and coming back refreshed. But burnout is a cycle. Something is causing the burnout, and you have to address the cause, or it's just going to happen again and it's going to get worse and worse. So, step number 3, we need to discover the cause of the burnout. So this takes a lot of introspection, a lot of thinking about your life, thinking about your past, what worked for you in the past and what didn't. Like I said, it might not be what you think it is. So really take some time to figure out what is actually causing it. There are a lot of usual causes for burnout that are pretty general, so I'm going to go ahead and list them to give you some ideas of what might be causing it for you. And maybe it's blaringly obvious to you what the problem is, but in case you're not sure, you're just feeling the burnout, but you're not sure of the exact cause, let me list some ideas and you take some time to think about them and figure out what is the cause in your particular case. So the first thing is lack of control. This is a big one. If you feel like you are constantly being buffeted in your work or life by things that you have no control over, that is hugely stressful and it really weighs you down. So if you feel like you don't have any control over your work, that's a big cause of burnout. Especially if you feel like you don't have any control over your schedule, which leads us to the second big cause, which is work-life imbalance, doing a ton of overtime, working so hard at work that you don't really have time for other things. Even if you really like your job, what it is, even if you're passionate about it, doing just that thing can still lead to burnout. Like I said, I'm a writer. I got burned out earlier this year because all I was doing was fiction writing. I wasn't doing other stuff to alleviate that constant word count treadmill. Now that I spend more time doing other things, it's easier for me to write again. So one of the big causes can be just you're not balancing something in your life. Something in your life is just taking over. Overtime is a huge culprit of burnout. if you're just constantly being called into work or asked to stay late, it's very easy to get burnout, and that might be the cause. Another big one is unclear expectations. So if you walk into work every day not sure if you're gonna get yelled at because of something you wrote, or if you're gonna get praised, which goes right along with another cause, which is dysfunctional workplace relationships or dysfunctional relationships in general. So this is something that I've dealt with frequently in the past. If you have a boss who doesn't really set clear expectations, trying to accomplish what they want when they don't even know what they want is a quick recipe for burnout. That's what I thought caused my burnout at a lot of different jobs. Was just, oh, well, I'm in a dysfunctional workplace, this isn't really working for me. It turns out the cause was that I don't like having bosses, so that's why I'm a freelancer now. So the cause was a little bit deeper for me than just the relationships in the workplace, but it could be the people who you're working with or just the environment. Like, it's not even the people's fault, but there's just a toxic environment at the workplace. That could also be the cause of your burnout. Another potential cause of your burnout is extremes of activity. So if you are either super duper bored all the time, like your job is really mundane, or your job is constant chaos. If there's no ebb and flow of activity, it's just always like, or ah, then you are on the road to burnout. The constant boredom one definitely has happened to me a lot, which again is why I'm happy that I'm a full-time writer now. If you're in the constant chaos, some people really actually like that environment. You know, when there's a lot going on all the time, that appeals to some personalities, that might work for you. But if you're in a constant chaos and stressful environment and you don't have a good support group, that's another big cause. If you don't have people around you who you feel like you can lean on and are helping you when you do need somebody to pick up some slack, that could potentially be another cause of burnout. So maybe it's not the environment, but the lack of support. You know, if you're the type of person that usually feeds on extreme situations, or you like being in these accelerated environments, but lately you've been feeling burnt out, it might be because you're not getting enough support from your coworkers or enough support in your home life. And the last one I'll talk about, this is a big one. This is one that I am glad to say that I have worked on, and I feel like I've conquered it. Trying to be perfect, trying to be all things to all people. All right, perfectionism is a really big cause of burnout, because you're never going to be satisfied with anything you do, and you're going to get extra stressed out by everything that you are doing. So trying to be perfect or trying to be all things to all people can lead very quickly to burnout. So now that we've done step 3, however much time that takes for you to really look at things and try to evaluate what the issue is. And like I said, you might get it wrong at first, but just pick what is the most likely thing. Like I said, I thought that I was getting burnout because of dysfunctional work relationships, and then eventually I realized that for me it's lack of control. I like to be totally in control of my schedule and the work that I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So not having a boss is what helped me get around burnout. But pick something that feels right to you, that feels the most likely, and that is your cause of burnout. Write it down, because we are going to revisit it later in order to make a plan of attack to get ourselves out of the burnout cycle. But first, before we make that plan, we're going to do step number 4, which is kind of the most hardcore step, although it can also be the most fun, but it is potentially the hardest one to do when you are feeling burnt out. So give yourself a lot of grace and a lot of time with this. But step number 4 is just figuring out, what do you actually want out of work, out of life? What is the point? What is your goal? You can make this as big and existential as you want, or something smaller. Like I said, for me, I figured out that the cause of my burnout was lack of control. But then I had to think, you know, what do I actually want? What do I want to be doing? And, you know, I came to the conclusion that I want to be writing things that are funny. I'm a comedy writer. I want to be writing things that are funny and interesting and in the genres and styles that I really enjoy and find cool. So figuring out what I want, as well as just what's the problem, helped me create a plan to get out of burnout. So just give yourself some time. This step is probably going to take the longest amount of time. If you've been burnt out, you probably haven't had time to really think about what you want. You've mostly just been reacting to things and to life and just trudging along. So really think about, what do you want out of work, out of your relationships, out of your creative endeavors? What is it you want? What's your goal? If this question is really, really hard for you, we have a video. Surprise, surprise! We have a video about making your artist mission statement, and it'll help walk you through what your goal could be. So go ahead and click that and watch that, and it'll help you with step number 4. Okay, now that we've done those steps, which however long they take you, that is okay. It's necessary. It's okay if it takes you a really long time to figure out your mission. It's okay if it takes you a really long time to burrow deeply into the cause of the burnout, but just figure out what is the most likely cause, figure out what your goal is, something that inspires you. And now that we have that, we're going to move on to step number 5. Step number 5 is actually making our action plan to break the cycle of burnout. Once we know what the problem is and where we actually want to be, we can create a plan to get there. The first part of your plan to get out of the cycle of burnout actually has nothing to do with anything we've talked about yet, and it's, yes, of course, improving your physical health. It's important. We forget about it. But we're not just soulful spirit beings. We are flesh machines, and we need to take care of our flesh machine in order to do other things well and feel good. So, as part of your action plan to break out of burnout, make sure you include getting more exercise, eating better, drinking more water, mindfulness activities, as much of this as you can handle adding to your schedule, even if it's just like listening to a quick meditation from Insight Timer, which is a really awesome app, before bed, or getting a water bottle that encourages you to drink more water during the day by having like cute designs that remind you to drink. Whatever you can do to add in that health stuff, do it. And also make a plan to fix your sleep schedule. Burnout really messes with your sleep schedule. It can make you want to stay up all night because you just don't want it to be tomorrow. You just don't want to go to work. But you've got to get to a better place with your sleep in order to feel better and in order to make the changes that you need to get out of burnout. So make it part of your plan to improve your food, your water, your sleep, and add some mindfulness practices to your daily routine. So that's the first part of the plan. The next part of the plan is we're going to take that problem that we already figured out earlier, so lack of control or whatever it was for you, and we're going to figure out how to reduce that problem in our lives, in our day-to-day, or to get rid of it completely. Like I said, I don't like working for other people. I don't like having a boss. It doesn't suit me because I'm bossy myself. So I eventually got to a point where I am self-employed, and that works a hell of a lot better for me. All of the problems have a corresponding solution like this. If your problem is you're just doing a ton of overtime, talk with your boss about your schedule. Can you reduce your hours? Really talk with your boss, talk with your coworkers, figure out ways to alleviate, reduce whatever the problem is. You might find that reducing the problem doesn't work. Maybe you start taking every Friday off, thinking that will give you enough time for a better work-life balance, but it just doesn't work. Your job is just too stressful. Then you might need to find other work. But start small. Start by making smaller adjustments. Just because you're unhappy right now doesn't mean you need to, I'm throwing it all away and moving to Calcutta. Or wherever you decide to move. You can make adjustments to make your current situation work. So start with small adjustments Like, even if it's lack of control, you don't have to jump straight to, well, I'm gonna be a freelancer now. If you want to, let me know and I'll help you figure out how to do it. But let's say the problem is lack of control. Ask for your boss to delegate to you more and to give you things that are totally under your control and not, micromanaged. Take on bigger projects. If you're bored all the time, try to take on more exciting roles at work, things that you're drawn to. If work is just too chaotic, lean on other people to help you. Remember that you can hit that forward button on your emails to send the question or concern to somebody else. Find ways to make small adjustments to address the source of your burnout. And if that doesn't work, if you try that for a while and you're just still totally down and still burnt to a crisp, then make bigger and bigger adjustments until you find something that works. Like I said, eventually I had to just become a freelancer and not have a boss. No, it was not gonna work for me otherwise. So, and now that's working great. So step 5 in summation, start with small adjustments that will reduce your initial problem and give you more time, freedom, and energy to pursue the big goal that really matters to you. Now, I said at the beginning of this video that this is just the way to start getting over burnout. It's a psychological condition, it's a mental illness, it is hard to get over. Start with these 5 steps and then continue with therapy, mindfulness practices as part of your regular routine, and a lot of time and self-compassion. You're not going to will yourself or force yourself out of this. You have to change your environment because there is something about your environment and situation that is causing this cycle. So don't beat yourself up. Burnout is a totally normal reaction to the environment that you're in. Start with these 5 steps and then continue with therapy, mindfulness, and self-compassion on your journey, and you'll be on your way to breaking out of the cycle of burnout. If you feel like there is something else that is still holding you back that we didn't talk about today, or you want more ideas on how you could break out of different bad cycles and become more creative, boy, do we have the guide for you. It's called the 21 Creativity Killers and How to Beat Them. We go through 21 different things that could be holding you back. Using that guide, you can figure out specifically what your issue is and how to beat it. So check out the 21 Creativity Killers guide and let me know in the comments what you think of these burnout steps. And I wish you all the best, and I promise you can get over it, you can get out of it. Like I said, I figured out a process that worked for me, I figured out an environment that works for me, and I'm just super happy with the results of this process. And like I said, this isn't just from me, this is from looking therapy and online research, so this isn't just me and my personal experience. I also wanted to make sure that I was validating this for y'all, so I did the research online as well to make sure that these steps align with what's recommended. So download the guide if you want a little bit more guidance with the 21 Creativity Killers, and comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and let's go kick burnout's ass. Woo!